McMahon is a Democratic strategist. Todd Harris is a Republican strategist. Thank you, gentlemen, both. So here, I ask you to do the gymnastics here. Mitt Romney seems to have lost his mojo. Newt Gingrich has got it for the time being through the holiday season. How does Mitt Romney get it back in time to win enough in the beginning not to get blown out?
Somebody has to take him in the corner and smack him around a little bit and tell him, look, Mitt, you're going to have to work for this thing. It's not inevitable. So that's the first thing, is a change of attitude. The second thing is, when you're drawing contrasts with your opponent, they have to be contrasts. You don't attack Newt Gingrich for being rich or for changing his positions. If you're the richest guy in the field and you've changed your positions more often than anybody else. And third, you know, he's counting on the late states now to bail him out. And he's saying, if I lose, you know, the Democratic nominee last time,
like a rope-a-dope strategy.
Yeah, didn't win New Hampshire and he won the nomination. If Newt Gingrich gets momentum in these first 4 states, and Mitt Romney's hoping the Giuliani strategy of waiting for Florida and the later states to save him is going to work this time any better than it did last time, he's crazy. I honestly can't figure out.
Well, paint this positively. How does he do? You're giving me all the don'ts.
Well, that's what he has to do. I mean, he literally has to recognize he can't send John Sununu out there to do his dirty work and have a conference call.
But you're saying he has to be aggressive.
He's got to engage Newt Gingrich, and he's got to tell people what this is about. And if they really, you know, Newt Gingrich channels the anger and the rage that Republicans feel toward President Obama better than anybody else in the field, but he can't win. And you said it while we were just talking before the segment. He's got to make that the central focus of this thing.
That he
Who
can win.
Beat President Obama? If you look at the polls, it's clear Newt Gingrich can't, and Mitt Romney's very competitive.
That seems logical. I don't know if it gets to the gut of the Republican Party. Your take on how Mitt Romney can turn it around and be the front runner in 2 or 3 months now?
Yeah, it's similar to what Steve said. I would boil it down to 2 things. Number one, you've got to do something that he's been unwilling to do this entire year, which is to take the fight directly to his opponent. At each, whether it's Bachmann, Perry, all these others had their 15 minutes of fame. And Mitt just sort of stood back and let it all unfold. You're starting to see them do this now. I think yesterday he called Gingrich's ideas zany. So they are doing this. The second thing is to gird for the long haul. You know, right now you're seeing this classic battle of intensity versus organization, and the intensity seems to be on Newt's side, but Newt really has very little organization. If this becomes a protracted slog, no one can stay white hot for months and months at a time. That means it does come down to organization. Very mundane things like, did you file a complete delegate slate in order to be awarded all the delegates that you would get if you won the state? The Romney folks have that stuff down to a science. I'm not so sure on the Gingrich side.
Todd, don't you think that there may not be a long haul? If Newt Gingrich pops off 4 quick victories, you know, Mitt Romney isn't going to be looking like anybody. Not only will he not look inevitable, he might not look viable.
Or conversely, if Ron Paul wins Iowa or does so well there that he takes any wind out of Gingrich's sails, you know, right now Mitt is still the front runner in New Hampshire. But if Gingrich doesn't go into New Hampshire with a certain amount of momentum, you know, I think what Mitt needs to prepare for is either a quick knockout, which starts with Ron Paul winning Iowa, or the long slog. That's how.
So let's talk about the possibility of let's do the more interesting, to me, the more compelling case is that Newt wins Iowa. He then goes on and challenges Mitt Romney in New Hampshire to the point of coming in second, and then kills him in South Carolina and goes on and beats him in Florida, right?
Right, that's right.
The other possibility is that Ron Paul pulls a big upset by either winning or coming in close second in Iowa on the 3rd of January, does very well and coming in second to comes in second to Mitt Romney up in New Hampshire, and then finally Newt gets his first narrow victory down in South Carolina. They all go to Florida together, and Mitt Romney wins there. That's the ideal for him.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
And is that still feasible?
I think, sure. Look, I think Ron Paul's got a real shot in Iowa. You know, there's a lot of intensity around Gingrich, but Paul's got the intensity and the organization, so people ought to be paying a lot of attention.
Well, here's the guy I think is getting a little hot right now. It's because this war in Iraq's ending, and it's not a popular war even among Republicans. Here's a video called "Let's Get This Done." It's Karl Rove, who heads up the Republican PAC, American Crossroads. It charts a path for Republican victory. It starts with the Republican nominee winning all the states that McCain won in a bad year, 2008, which are now worth 180 electoral votes. Then he wins Indiana, North Carolina, and Virginia, the three outlying states that Obama was able to pluck from God knows where. And then it goes on to the traditionally Republican states. They pick up the close ones. They always, the deciders all the time, Florida and Ohio, both of which Obama won in 2008. And then they lost the Republicans in 2008. And finally, to win, the Republican nominee has to win any single one of the swing states you see here in yellow, the usual states. It just seems to be so obvious. This is so uncreative by Rove. All he does is say we're going to pick up the fortunate ones that Obama got, take the swing states, then pick up a Democrat state or two. Well, you could, an eighth grader could have done what Rove just did here.
Well,
what is the originality in this?
It's not original, but you know what? History is repeating itself in this sense. This isn't going to be 2008 where the president wins by 95 electoral votes. It's going to be one of these kind of races where
the usual states go the usual way.
States go the usual ways. But you know what you're looking at now is instead of the Democrats needing to steal a few states in order to be successful, which is what it was 8 or 12 years ago, it's now the shoe's on the other foot. Ron Bronstein wrote a great piece, The Blue Wall, about how Democrats now have some structural advantages, and the Republicans, with what they're doing on immigration and driving away the Hispanic vote, is making the structural advantage for Democrats even greater. If the Obama campaign is smart, and they are, they'll go to Virginia and Florida and they'll say, you can maybe have these, but you're going to have to spend $1 billion to get them. And it's going to be very difficult for the Republicans.
Give me your mind's eye. Suppose Newt really cleans up his act and runs almost an Eisenhower campaign or a second Reagan campaign right through now, okay? Or Mitt Romney comes back and grabs the center right back, and then therefore the center. How do you win? Do you pick up Ohio? You have to win Ohio, right? And you win Florida, your state, right?
Yes.
It's the normal way.
Look, for Republicans to be successful in 2012, we almost have to treat whoever our nominee is. I mean, obviously we want to pick the best one, but they're the placeholder. This election is a referendum on Barack Obama and the Obama economy. If we allow the Obama campaign to turn this election into a choice between him and somebody else, it's going to be, I'm not saying we won't win, but it's a much harder campaign. I think the Rove map makes a lot of sense in an economic referendum kind of election, because you start looking at some of those states that the Republican nominee would need to pick up, and you look like Ohio, Florida, North Carolina. These states have terrible unemployment, and so it's a unfortunate fluke for President Obama that so many of the swing states this time around seem to have such higher unemployment rates than the national average.
Can the Republicans win without Ohio?
It starts getting tough, but...
Can your state win, your Democrats win without Pennsylvania?
No.
Okay. Some of it's traditional. Anyway, thank you, Steve McMahon. Who's betting? Are you betting on Newt right now or betting on Romney?
My money's still on Romney, but I'm not willing to bet less of it.
Oh, no, I'm betting on Obama. You mean
no,
the nomination? I think Gingrich is going to get it. And by the way, I didn't mean no
so
about
too,
Pennsylvania.
actually.
I just meant it gets a lot more difficult.
I think Gingrich has got the hot hand right now, and his timing's unbelievable. And I do think he's a great performer and will perform appropriately now. He's not going to blow.
Yeah, he's a brilliant,
brilliant
candidate.
He's not going to jump around there like some jumping bean like he did all those other years. Anyway, thank you, Steve McMahon. Thank you, Todd. Have a nice holiday if I don't see you.